The year was 1968, a cramped gym in West Los Angeles. Morning light filtering through dusty windows. 20 skeptical witnesses gathered in a circle, their eyes fixed upward at a standard gymnasium ceiling, exactly 8 feet from the ground. They weren't there to watch a basketball game or a gymnastics exhibition. They were there because a 140-pound martial artist named Bruce Lee had made an audacious claim. He was going to kick that ceiling with his foot, not touch it with his fingertips during a jump, not graze it with an outstretched hand, kick it with his foot from a standing position. No running start, no trampoline, just raw explosive power channeled through 5'7" of disciplined human anatomy. The witnesses exchanged glances. Some smirked, others looked confused. A few seemed genuinely curious about how this would unfold, because what Bruce was proposing violated everything they understood about human biomechanics. Professional basketball players, men standing 6'8" with 40-inch verticals, couldn't do this. Olympic high jumpers with years of specialized training couldn't do this. The world record for a standing vertical jump hovered around 5 feet, and that was just getting your body's center of mass as high as possible, not extending a leg to make contact with something nearly a foot above your maximum reach. But Bruce Lee wasn't interested in what conventional wisdom deemed possible. He'd spent 2 full years engineering his body into something the fitness world had never seen, a compact, explosive device wrapped in muscle fiber, capable of generating force ratios that would make biomechanics professors scratch their heads in disbelief. And now, with witnesses present to document the attempt, he was about to demonstrate that the human body's limits exist primarily in the mind, not in the muscle. Let's talk about why this feat was considered impossible in the first place. The average recreational athlete can jump maybe 15 inches off the ground vertically. Someone who trains regularly might hit 2 feet. College basketball players typically jump between 28 and 34 inches. Elite NBA athletes reach 36 to 40 inches. The absolute genetic freaks, the once-in-a-generation athletes, can hit 44 to 48 inches. And remember, these are measurements of how high their center of mass rises, not how high they can extend a limb while maintaining control and balance mid-air. Now add the complication Bruce faced. When you're trying to maximize vertical jump height, you tuck your body into a compact position, knees pulled up, arms tight, every part of you working to get your center of gravity as high as possible. It's biomechanically efficient, but Bruce couldn't do that. He had to extend his leg fully at the precise apex of his jump, transforming his body from a coiled spring into a straight line. This is exponentially more difficult because you're fighting physics at every stage. The moment you extend that leg, you're shifting your center of mass, disrupting your balance, and asking your body to maintain stability while performing contradictory action. Here's where the mathematics become fascinating. Bruce stood 67 inches tall. The ceiling was 96 inches from the floor. Simple subtraction gives you 29 inches of difference. But this calculation is misleading because it doesn't account for where his foot naturally rests when he's standing. His hip joint sat approximately 36 inches off the ground, and his leg measured roughly 32 inches from hip to foot. So theoretically, if he could somehow levitate straight up without jumping, his maximum reach with a fully extended leg would be around 68 inches. The ceiling was still 28 inches beyond that reach. This means Bruce needed to generate enough explosive power to launch his entire body upward by more than 2 feet. Then at the exact millisecond, his upward momentum stopped, and before gravity pulled him back down, execute a perfectly timed kick that added the final crucial inches. The window of opportunity, approximately 1/10 of a second. Too early and he'd lose height. Too late and he'd already be descending. The timing had to be computer precise, executed by an organic body that was simultaneously managing balance, power generation, and spatial awareness. But here's what separates this from pure athletic spectacle and transforms it into something resembling scientific achievement. Bruce didn't just decide one day to attempt this. He engineered a training protocol specifically designed to make the impossible achievable. Starting in 1966, 2 full years before the demonstration, he deconstructed the problem into its fundamental components and attacked each one systematically. First came the foundation: brute leg strength. Bruce performed heavy squats with 250 pounds across his shoulders, extraordinary weight for a man who barely cracked 40 pounds, but he wasn't building mass for mass's sake. He was building the structural foundation that would support everything else. Then came plyometric training, box jumps, depth jumps, exercises designed to teach his muscle fibers to contract explosively, generating maximum force in minimum time. This is where power lives, in that fraction of a second, where stored energy releases all at once. Then flexibility training that bordered on obsessive. Most martial artists can perform a full split with their legs extending 180 degrees. Bruce trained until he could do oversplits, elevating one leg on a platform while the other remained flat on the ground, stretching his hip flexors and hamstrings beyond what human anatomy typically allows. This wasn't vanity. This extreme flexibility meant that at the apex of his jump, when he needed every possible inch of extension, his body wouldn't fight him. The range of motion was already there, pre-installed through thousands of hours of stretching. But the secret weapon, the training method that separated him from every other athlete attempting similar feats, was weighted jump training. Bruce designed a 40-pound weighted vest and wore it during hundreds, eventually thousands of jump sessions. His body adapted to propelling 180 pounds instead of one. His nervous system learned to recruit more muscle fibers simultaneously. His tendons strengthened to handle the increased load. Then he removed the vest. Suddenly his body felt weightless. The same neural patterns that launched 180 pounds now launched 140 pounds, and the result was explosive height he'd never achieved before. This is a principle Olympic athletes understand. Overload training followed by deload periods creates superhuman performance. But in 1968, for a martial artist to apply scientific training principles, typically reserved for track and field athletes, revolutionary doesn't quite capture it. The morning of the demonstration arrived. Bruce entered the gym, barefoot. Shoes would interfere with proprioception, that sixth sense of body position that makes the difference between precise movement and approximation. He wore simple black clothing that wouldn't restrict movement. Danny Santo, his training partner and meticulous documentarian, stood ready with measuring tape and notepad. The 20 witnesses formed a loose circle. Some were martial artists who'd heard rumors. Others were athletes curious to see if this was legitimate or performance theater. One man was a professional basketball scout who'd been invited by a friend and had no idea why he was watching a 140-pound martial artist in a gym at 8 in the morning. Bruce stood in the center, staring upward at the ceiling. He wasn't just looking, he was calculating. Trajectory, angle, timing, force generation. This wasn't instinctive, it was engineered. He explained his approach to the witnesses, breaking down the physics of what they were about to see. The jump itself required perfect sequential muscle activation, calves, quadriceps, glutes, hip flexors, all firing in precise order. The kick required waiting until the exact moment of apex, that fraction of a second where upward momentum equals zero, but gravity hasn't yet reasserted control. Extend too early, and you lose height. Extend too late, and you're already falling. The margin for error was essentially zero. The witnesses stopped smirking. They were beginning to understand this wasn't bravado. This was applied physics, using flesh and bone as the machinery. Bruce began his warm-up routine. Light bouncing to activate the nervous system and flood muscles with blood. Then stretching. Not gentle yoga studio stretching, but aggressive range of motion work. He dropped into a full split, effortlessly, then transitioned to an oversplit that made several witnesses wince. His flexibility was almost disturbing to watch. It looked like his joints operated under different rules than normal human anatomy. Then came calibration jumps. No kick yet. just getting airborne to gauge his physical state. First jump, maybe 6 feet. Second jump, 6.5. Third jump, 7 feet. His hand was now grazing the ceiling tiles. The witnesses leaned forward unconsciously. This was getting close. Fourth jump reached 7.5 feet. His fingertips brushed the ceiling clearly. Energy was building in the room like static electricity before a storm. Bruce stopped, breathing deeply, centering himself. This is where Eastern philosophy meets Western athletics. The mind must be calm even as the body prepares for explosive action. Tension inhibits speed. Relaxation enables it to move with maximum quickness. You must begin in a state of complete calm, then transition instantly to total activation. Bruce was a human switch, flipping from off to on in microseconds. He positioned himself directly beneath his target spot on the ceiling. Feet shoulder-width apart, arms loose at his sides. His face showed no strain, no visible preparation. To an untrained observer, he looked like someone waiting for a bus. But every muscle in his body was ready. Every neuron in his nervous system was primed. He was a coiled spring that looked like loose rope. Deep inhalation. A moment of absolute stillness. Then motion. His arms dropped first, swinging backward and down to generate momentum. His knees bent as his hips loaded, body compressing like a piston preparing to fire. For perhaps half a second, he looked smaller, tighter, energy visibly concentrating. Then the explosion. Arms whipping upward, knees extending with violent force, hips driving his entire body skyward. Every muscle fiber from his calves to his core contracted simultaneously, generating an estimated 1,200 pounds of downward force against the floor. More than 8 times his body weight, that force translated into upward acceleration that looked almost unnatural. He rose. 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. Time seemed to slow as the witnesses tracked his ascent. 7 feet. Still climbing. 7.5 feet. And then, at approximately 7 feet, 8 inches, the precise apex of his trajectory, Bruce's right leg shot upward like a piston extending. His knees straightened completely. His hip flexed to maximum range. His foot accelerated upward even as his body's momentum was dying. The final 4 inches. The ones physics said couldn't exist. Then, contact. Not a brush, not a graze. A solid, unmistakable impact. His foot struck the ceiling with enough force to make the tiles shudder. A clearly audible thump echoed through the gym, 8 feet high. From a standing position, with a full kick extension. The impossible, now actual. Bruce landed with both feet simultaneously, body perfectly balanced, like he'd simply stepped off a curb, rather than defied gravitational mathematics. No stumble, no wavering. Complete control through the entire sequence. Launch, apex, extension, contact, descent, landing. It looked almost casual, which made it more disturbing. The difficult appeared effortless. The gym erupted. Applause, shouts of disbelief. The basketball scout was shaking his head, mouth open. Dan and Asanto immediately moved to verify the measurement. Tape measure extended from floor to ceiling. 8 feet exactly. No question. No dispute. Documentation complete. But Bruce wasn't finished. Again, he asked. Because once could be luck. A perfect confluence of variables that aligned by chance. Twice would be skill. He repeated the sequence. Same preparation. Same explosion. Same timing. Same result. Foot striking ceiling. 8 feet. Again, he did it 5 times total. 5 perfect executions. 5 impossible achievements. What started as spectacle had become scientific demonstration. This wasn't a trick. This was a reproducible skill, performed on command, under observation. After the 5th attempt, witnesses measured Bruce's standing reach, 7 feet 3 inches, with his arm fully extended overhead. His foot, during those jumps, traveled from ground level to 8 feet. The mathematics worked out to approximately a 38-inch vertical jump, combined with perfect leg extension and timing. 38 inches alone puts him in elite NBA territory. But NBA players aren't extending their legs mid-air to kick targets. They're tucking their bodies to maximize jump height. Bruce was doing something exponentially more difficult and making it look routine. The professional basketball scout approached afterward, still processing what he'd witnessed. "I've measured hundreds of vertical leaps," he told Bruce. "I've seen every top NBA player jump. Maybe 3 or 4 could touch an 8-foot ceiling jumping straight up. But kick it? Extended leg? From standing position? That's your skill alone. You should consider professional basketball." Bruce smiled. "I'll stick with martial arts." Later biomechanical analysis revealed why this feat was so extraordinary. Bruce's legs contained approximately 70% fast-twitch muscle fibers, the type responsible for explosive power. Normal humans have a 50-50 ratio of fast twitch to slow twitch. Trained athletes might reach 60% fast twitch. 70% represents a combination of genetic advantage and targeted training that exists in maybe 1% of the population. His flexibility allowed full-range leg extension at the jump's apex. Most people's hip flexors physically prevent full extension during explosive movement. The body protects itself from injury by limiting range of motion under stress. Bruce's flexibility training overrode these protective mechanisms, giving him access to range most bodies keep locked away. His timing was computer precise. Biomechanics labs that later analyzed footage estimated his extension occurred within a window of 0.1 seconds at exact apex. Milliseconds early or late, and he misses the ceiling. His neuromuscular coordination was operating at levels typically associated with Olympic athletes specializing in their discipline for decades. But there's a deeper element beyond physiology. Pain tolerance, jumping that explosively, that high, that repeatedly hurts. Muscle tissue tears microscopically. Joint capsules compress under enormous force. Landing generates impact equivalent to several times your body weight. Bruce performed this 5 consecutive times with no visible discomfort, no rest period, no acknowledgement of pain. Not because he didn't feel it, he felt everything. But his mind had learned to categorize pain as mere data, information that could be acknowledged and then ignored in favor of the task at hand. The story spread through martial arts communities like wildfire. Bruce Lee kicked an 8-foot ceiling from standing position multiple times, witnessed by 20 people, documented by credible sources. Initial skepticism gave way to verification. Myth transformed into confirmed fact. Legend earned through demonstrated capability. Other martial artists inevitably attempted replication. All failed. The closest documented attempt reached 7 feet 4 inches, performed by a 6'2" professional high kicker with significantly longer legs. He still fell 8 inches short of what Bruce achieved at 5'7". That's the difference between very good and legendary. Everyone can jump somewhat high. Elite athletes can jump very high. But Bruce could jump high, execute a perfectly timed kick at apex, maintain balance and control throughout, and repeat the performance on demand. The complete package, the ceiling kick, revealed Bruce's training philosophy at its core. He didn't train movements, he trained attributes. He never practiced ceiling kicks specifically. Instead, he developed vertical jump capacity. He developed flexibility. He developed timing. He developed explosive power. He developed mental focus. Then he combined these attributes into a skill set that could be applied to any situation. This is intelligent training, not memorizing techniques, but building physical capabilities that transcend specific applications. This is Jeet Kune Do philosophy made physical, not style, not technique. Attribute development followed by creative application. Years later, in 1973, a journalist asked Bruce about his greatest athletic achievement. After thinking for a moment, he answered, "Probably the ceiling kick, 8 feet from standing." That required everything: strength, speed, flexibility, timing, focus, all attributes working together. Most complete demonstration of a trained body. He understood what it represented beyond impressive spectacle. It was proof that his training philosophy worked, that systematic attribute development produces capabilities that seem superhuman but are actually supertrained. There's a universe of difference between those terms. The ceiling kick influenced athletes beyond martial arts. NBA players heard the story, some dismissed it, others grew curious. One professional dunker, standing 6'8" with a documented 40-inch vertical, tried replicating it. He failed completely. "I can jump higher than Bruce Lee," he reported afterward. "I'm significantly taller, but I can't do what he did." The kick while jumping, that's a completely different skill. He mastered something I can't even attempt successfully. Respect from a professional jumper, acknowledging Bruce's unique mastery. So what's the lesson decades later? What does an 8-foot ceiling kick teach us today? That perceived limits are often false limits, arbitrary boundaries accepted without question. That impossible usually means not attempted properly with sufficient dedication and intelligent training. That systematic training produces extraordinary results when applied consistently over time. That the mind must believe before the body can achieve. That a small person with massive dedication defeats a large person with minimal effort. That specialization creates exceptional capability in specific domains. Most importantly, Bruce Lee wasn't superhuman, he was super-trained. That difference changes everything. Superhuman can't be replicated. It's magic, genetics, divine intervention. Super-trained can be replicated by anyone willing to invest the time, intelligence, and effort. You can't be Bruce Lee. Your genetics are different. Your history is different. Your body is different. But you can use Bruce Lee's methods. Train with his intelligence. Think with his clarity. Push with his intensity. Results will follow. Guarantee. Maybe not an 8-foot ceiling kick, but your personal equivalent. Your impossible made possible. Your ceiling touched, whatever that means for your life and goals. That's the legacy, not the kick itself, but the proof that dedication works. That intelligent training produces measurable results. That humans can achieve extraordinary things when they refuse to accept limitations as permanent conditions. Bruce Lee kicked an 8-foot ceiling. He proved impossibility wrong. He left a detailed roadmap for others. He said through his actions, "I did this. You can do your version. Just train intelligently. Just believe genuinely. Just work consistently." Simple message. Powerful truth. Demonstrated perfectly by a foot striking a ceiling 8 feet high, launched by a 5'7" man who refused to accept what everyone else considered impossible, making the impossible look easy, making the easy look inevitable. Because that's what proper training does, transforms impossible into inevitable. If you work hard enough, long enough, smart enough, intelligently enough, your ceiling gets touched every single time. Bruce proved it. His foot on that ceiling, 8 feet up, forever inspiring, forever teaching, forever proving that human potential expands infinitely when human dedication matches human imagination.